Hello, and welcome to the YouTube channel for the Renaissance English History Podcast. Today, a deep dive into the family politics, ambition, and intrigue of the Boleyns. If you're new here, very special warm welcome to you. I've been podcasting on Tudor England since 2009. I am Heather Tesco. This is the place where I put all of my podcast episodes, plus loads of extra fun content that doesn't make it onto the podcast feed. So if that sounds appealing, why don't you hit subscribe and then you will never miss an episode that I put out. So if you are a fan of Tudor history, and I'm sure you are, otherwise you wouldn't be watching this, there are few figures more controversial and captivating, you know this, than Anne Boleyn, the second wife of Henry VIII, mother of Elizabeth I, arguably one of England's greatest monarchs. But Anne was more than just a queen. Her life and the lives of the Boleyn family were steeped in intrigue, ambition, and ultimately tragedy, of course. But first, I'm going to digress for a minute. So, one of my favorite times of the day is in the morning after my husband takes my kiddo to school. There's, like the morning rush and dash. And then I get like 20 minutes of just absolute peace before I start work. There's nobody else in the house. It's amazing. Like if you've been a mom, you probably know, right? Even if you haven't been a mom, you might know. So I make my coffee, I make my breakfast, and I watch Jimmy Kimmel while I eat breakfast. And honestly, of all of the late night TV hosts, he appeals to me the most, I think, because he has a sense of humor like a 14-year-old boy. I have a sense of humor of a 14-year-old boy. Like literally, if I had $1 for every time I responded, that's what she said, to something stupid, I would totally be a gazillionaire. So yeah, it's embarrassing just how stupid my sense of humor is sometimes. And Jimmy Kimmel totally matches that. So I'm a big fan. So anyway, the writer's strike that's going on right now has meant that there are no new episodes of Jimmy Kimmel. So my morning YouTube time at breakfast is like missing the jokes and the silliness of Jimmy Kimmel. So I decided to write some jokes and pretend that I am the female Tudor version of Jimmy Kimmel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my video here, choose my background. Okay. Hopefully this shows up for you. Tudor late night with Heather. Here we go. All right. I haven't done this before, so we're going to have fun here. All right. So, you know how they say fashion from the 16th century is all about the ruffs these days? So I asked my tailor for one, and he said, well, how big do you want it? And I said, big enough so I don't have to see the Spanish Armada coming. Am I right? Having way too much fun with this, you guys. Have you heard about the Gutenberg guy? He invented the printing press. And now any Tom, Dick, or Harry can make a book. My uncle just published a memoir. He called it 50 Shades of Plague. It's a real page burner. And hey, have you heard about this new thing called the Reformation? It's like a renovation of the church, only with less hammers and more heresy. And how about that Christopher Columbus? He was looking for India and he ended up in America. I mean, I made a similar mistake last week. I was looking for the privy and I ended up in the pantry. Having way too much fun. And what's the deal with all these new colonies? I mean, like, I can't even manage my estate without losing a chicken or two. And here they are trying to govern like entire new worlds, right? I heard King Henry VIII just got another portrait done. At this rate, he's changing wives and waistlines faster than the painters can keep up. Am I right? Speaking of marriage, they're calling this period the Renaissance, a fancy French term that means rebirth. So I told my husband, I think I'm having a renaissance. And he said, great. Does that mean we can play Barley Break again like we did 20 years ago? If you know, you know. But seriously, folks, let's give a round of applause to the band. They're so good, even the Spanish Inquisition didn't expect them.
Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I will be here all week. Don't forget to tip your jesters. All right, let's get back to normal. That was fun. That's really something. Okay, back to normal we are now. That was fun, wasn't it? I had fun. I don't know if you did. I did. It really doesn't take much to amuse me. It really doesn't. So today we are diving in to the labyrinth of Boleyn family intrigue. We will explore their rapid rise to power, their bold ambitions, and their high stakes games of courtly love that ultimately led to their downfall. Let's start with the key players in the story, the Boleyn family. At the heart, it was Thomas Boleyn and his wife, Elizabeth Howard. Thomas was a gifted courtier and diplomat, and Elizabeth was the daughter of the powerful Duke of Norfolk, which made them a formidable pairing. They were the parents of 3 children who would leave their mark on history: Mary, Anne, and George. Thomas Boleyn was born into a family of substantial wealth and moderate influence, his father being Sir William Boleyn. He was a successful merchant and politician. The Boleyns had been steadily climbing the social and political ladder for generations, but it was Thomas who would catapult them into the upper echelons of the nobility. He was a man of considerable intellect and charm, fluent in multiple languages, which served him well in his diplomatic roles for the crown. The decision to marry Elizabeth Howard was a strategic move that significantly elevated the Boleyns' status. Elizabeth was the daughter of Thomas Howard, 2nd Duke of Norfolk, one of the most powerful men in England. It was a prestigious match, indicative of the Boleyns' rising fortunes, and it further integrated Thomas into the nexus of power at court. The Howard family was deeply entrenched in Tudor politics, and their support would prove invaluable as Thomas Boleyn navigated the treacherous waters of the royal court. This union set the stage for the Boleyn children's future roles in this tumultuous era. The rise to power was no accident. It was carefully orchestrated, fueled by ambition and strategic alliances. Thomas Boleyn's diplomatic skills and linguistic prowess, paired with Elizabeth's noble lineage and courtly connections, propelled them upwards through the Tudor hierarchy. Their children were born into this world of power and privilege where their lives were closely entwined with the monarchy from a young age. The Boleyn children were provided with an exceptional education, both in scholarly pursuits as well as the intricate dance of court life. Mary was the eldest. She was the first to experience the royal court's glamour and danger, serving as a maid of honor of Catherine of Aragon, Henry's first queen. George, the only son, was equally well educated, fluent in several languages, and was a favored courtier of the king. And then, of course, there was Anne. Anne's upbringing was somewhat unconventional for a girl of her time. She spent part of her childhood at the court of Margaret of Austria, where she received an education that emphasized culture and languages and the arts. And she later served at the French court, which was renowned for its sophistication and its fashion. These experiences would have shaped her charismatic and captivating persona, which would later play a pivotal role in her life, and by extension, the course of English history. In this way, the stage was set for the Boleyns to play their part in the high-stakes game of Tudor court politics. Little did they know just how influential and infamous their family would become. Anne Boleyn's early life was characterized by this rich education, like I said, this exposure to continental culture and politics, and would later play a significant role in her approach to court life and her relationship with Henry VIII. Born in 1501, she was the youngest of the 3 surviving Boleyn children, and her early upbringing was spent in Hever Castle in Kent, but her life took a dramatic turn when she was sent to the continent for her education at the age of 12. First, she was at the court of Margaret of Austria in the Netherlands, where she received an education typical for a girl of her station. It was a place of learning and refinement where she studied languages, music, dance, and most importantly, the art of courtly manners. But her most formative years were undoubtedly spent in France. When her father secured a place for her in the household of Queen Mary, Henry VIII's sister and the newly wedded wife of the elderly Louis XII of France, Anne moved to the vibrant French court. After Louis's death and Mary's return to England, Anne remained in France, serving Queen Claude. In France, she was exposed to the ideas of the Renaissance, the new courtly love poetry, and perhaps most importantly, the early whispers of religious reform. She developed a love for French fashion, which would later cause quite a stir at the English court. Anne returned to England in 1522, and she soon secured a position as a lady-in-waiting to Catherine of Aragon. Her continental education and experience, combined with her sharp intellect and unique charm, made her stand out at the English court. But little did anyone know these were just the early chapters of the fascinating and tumultuous story of Anne's life. On her return to England, Anne quickly became a prominent figure in the court of Henry VIII. She was charming, she was witty and cultured, attributes that did not go unnoticed by the king. However, the courtship between Anne and Henry was far from straightforward, of course. It was deeply entwined with the ambitions and machinations of her family and her father, Thomas Boleyn. He was a shrewd political player. He had served the Tudor court loyally and had been rewarded with a series of increasingly influential political posts. He had already seen one daughter, Mary, become the king's mistress, and he had reaped the benefits of royal favor. But when Henry's interest in Anne became apparent, Thomas saw an opportunity for even greater advancement of the family's fortunes. Anne, unlike her sister Mary, was not content to simply be the king's mistress. Drawing upon her experience of the complex politics of the French court, she refused Henry's initial advances and held out for a bigger prize to be his wife and his queen. This daring gamble set the stage for the 7-year courtship, during which Henry tried to annul his marriage to Catherine of Aragon. Thomas Boleyn was a crucial figure during this period, using his influence and connections to support Henry's cause, all the while working tirelessly to elevate the status of the Boleyn family. As for Mary, her earlier relationship with Henry added another layer of complexity to the situation. Some historians speculate that Anne's refusal to become Henry's mistress, like her sister had been, was influenced by Mary's experience. Mary had been cast aside when Henry lost interest. She married another courtier, but her reputation was kind of in tatters, and she was just sort of cast aside as soon as he lost interest. Anne learned from that, and she was determined, so they say, to secure a more permanent place in Henry's life. The Boleyn family's intricate dance of court politics and personal ambition would have far-reaching consequences, not just for them, but for the entire realm. Anne Boleyn's ascension to the throne in 1533, following her controversial marriage to Henry, marked a significant shift in the English court politics. As queen, Anne's influence over Henry was profound. She was a key player in the English Reformation, using her position to advance the Protestant cause. Anne's time as queen was marked by great political and religious upheaval. She played an active role in court politics and was instrumental in promoting those who supported the break with Rome, including Thomas Cromwell, and was a significant patron of the new religious ideas. The Boleyn family, once mere courtiers, had now become the most influential family, one of the most influential families in England, guiding the religious direction of the entire country. However, this rise to power also sowed the seeds of the Boleyn family's downfall. Anne failed to provide Henry with the male heir he so desperately wanted, giving birth to the future Queen Elizabeth I and suffering several miscarriages thereafter. This, coupled with her inability to navigate the treacherous waters of court politics as skillfully as she had navigated the path to the throne, made her vulnerable to her enemies at court. It was a cruel twist of fate that Thomas Cromwell, who had once been her close ally, would engineer her downfall. Accused of adultery and treason, Anne was arrested in 1536, and in a trial that echoed the court intrigues and machinations that had marked her rise to power, Anne was found guilty and sentenced to death. Her brother George was swept up in the charges as well and met the same fate. In a matter of days, the Boleyn family fell from being one of the highest families to losing all of their power. They had once been at the pinnacle of power, and they were now marked by scandal and tragedy. Their story serves as a stark reminder of the dangerous game of ambition and power that was played at the Tudor court. The impact of the Boleyn family on the trajectory of Tudor England is hard to overstate. Despite their ultimate fall from grace, their influence played a critical role in one of the most transformative periods in English history. Undoubtedly, the most significant part of the legacy is the birth of Elizabeth I. Anne's only surviving child would go on to become one of the greatest monarchs in English history. It was Anne's own determination and ambition, qualities that hastened her own downfall, that were instrumental in Elizabeth's upbringing and eventual ascension to the throne. Even after Anne's death, the echoes of her influence were felt in Elizabeth's reign, particularly in the religious reformation that her mother had so ardently supported. However, after Anne's death, the Boleyn family's influence waned rapidly. Thomas Boleyn, once a powerful courtier, retired from court and died just a few years later. The Boleyns family's reputation was tarnished by scandal, and they never regained the power that they once had. They're remembered today with a mixture of fascination and controversy. Anne, in particular, continues to captivate historians and the public alike. Her life, marked by ambition, love, power, and tragedy, has been the subject of countless books, films, TV series, and YouTube videos. However, the family story also serves as a cautionary tale of the perils of courtly ambition in the volatile world of the Tudor court. Their meteoric rise and subsequent fall underscore the dangerous game of power that was played in the shadow of the throne, a game that could lead to untold influence and power, but also to the executioner's block. In the end, the Boleyn family, with their ambition, intrigue, and tragic downfall, have left an indelible mark on the tapestry of English history. But the story of the Boleyns, like any historical narrative, is not just about the figures at its center. It's a window into the complex and often volatile world of the Tudor court, where ambition and intrigue could lead to unimaginable power or devastating downfall. The Boleyn family story continues to fascinate us and captivate us, and there's so much more to discover. So if you've stayed with me this long and you made it through the bad jokes, why not give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to make sure you never miss a video that I put out. And check out my other videos too. Some recommendations are on the screen right now, I'm sure. And that way you can dive very deep into 16th century history, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.